but from that point on, Havana would become a permanent location for the American writer. He settled in Ambos Mundos Hotel in the corner of Obispo Boulevard and Mercaderes Street, one of old Havana's most famous. Room 511, the one with the best view in the building, was his residence as he went on constant sea trips in the yacht Pilar. His first writing about Havana would be a chronic for Esquire magazine, but his first fictional writing about Cuba was actually the only short story he did about it, and it was called No One Ever Dies. One of his best works, For Whom the Bell Tolled, was written mostly in Cuba between 1939 and 1940. He sailed here and made his last long stay in Ambos Mundos Hotel after he was done covering the Spanish Civil War and during his final separation from Pauline Pfeiffer, triggered by his relationship with Martha Gellhorn, who joined him in Havana and was essential for him to write For Whom the Bell Tolled. Hemingway and Martha Gellhorn rented the property of Finca Vigía in 1940, and later on he bought it thanks to the money made by his book, For Whom the Bell Tolls. The hill upon which Finca Vigía is located used to be a watch post for the Spanish military until the last years of the 19th century, and that's where the name comes from. Vigía means watchman. In 1889, Spanish architect Miguel Pascual Baguer built himself a family house there, which would have several owners over the years until Gellhorn found it on the newspaper. The property covers 4 hectares, and it's rich in vegetable species. It holds the house, a bungalow, a tower, a pool, and Hemingway's yacht, Pilar. The main room of the house was the place to receive all the famous personalities that visited Hemingway, which were not few. The house also has a library with more than 9,000 books, a dining room, and a study, which Hemingway never used as such, all decorated with hunting trophies. In 1947, Mary Welch, his 4th wife, had the idea of building a 3-floor tower in the back of the house. The first one was the home for dozens of cats that lived in the property, and it's now a gallery. The second floor was used to store traveling and fishing items, and nowadays it is used to showcase Hemingway's passion for fishing. And the third floor was thought by Mary as a study for her husband's writing, but he never used it as such. Everyone had to be quiet in Finca Vigía in the mornings because that is when he liked to do his writing. There he would put works directly on his writing machine, standing, shirtless and barefoot. Curiously, the property was used 5 years ago to shoot a film about Hemingway's life. The movie was called Papa, and it was the first Hollywood film shot in Cuba in over 40 years. This property is a museum since the 1960s, and it's the best place in the country to get in touch with Papa. The house museum is preserved exactly as it was when he left for the last time in 1959, when he was already in the mental state which would take him to suicide. After World War II, Hemingway spent a lot of time in Havana. He began his periods of depression, particularly after several personal issues. In Finca Vigía, he began writing 2 novels, The Garden of Eden, which would be published after his death, and The Sea Book, one he did not finish, but was the base of his classic The Old Man and the Sea, for which he won a Pulitzer, and after which he was given the Nobel Prize for Literature. There are other places people visit to connect with the literary genius. Going east from the Bay of Havana, you can get to Cojimar, a former fisherman's village where Papa spent a lot of time. Fishermen who did not hang out with him because he was a famous writer, since most of them had never read a book in their lives, but because they fished and drank together. Since 1937, the head of his yacht, Pilar, was Gregorio Fuentes, a Cojimar original who knew Papa very well, and he actually died in 2002 at age 104. After Papa himself died, the fishers from Cojimar made a collect and had a statue of Hemingway built in their village, his village, the one that inspired his classic, The Old Man and the Sea. In Old Havana, Papa immortalized 2 bars with the single phrase and a lot of visits. My